So can you introduce yourself to us?
My name is Faina, the first name. The last name is Viktorovich, a longer name. I was born on August 27, 1939, in Leningrad, which used to be called St. Petersburg. I lived for almost 40 years in the Soviet Union and then immigrated. There is nothing of that kind of situation where I would tell to anyone my story. Obviously, my family is aware of all the things that are happening in my life. Other than that, I mean, yes, I met friends over this almost 46 years, acquaintances, but never sort of, to speak, tell a story. Even since I started to belong to this Holocaust survivors organization. There was no need to tell. Yes, when I applied, I just by chance applied. I didn't know it existed. My brother, who came 16 years after I came to this country with his family, I rented for his family, an apartment in Brooklyn. My brother was at that time, he will be in a few days 92, so he came 16 years ago, 76 he was. He never went to work, obviously, already in this country. And the area where they got to live was populated with a large and still Russian immigrant population. And there were a number of Russian newspapers, a magazine, all kinds of services. So he read about this organization, Holocaust survivors. And he told me later on. So for the last few years, I forgot when actually I entered the relationship with this organization. I wouldn't know. No one approached me, nowhere I could read in American newspapers, maybe somewhere.
Right.
So that's because my brother read it in the Russian papers.
Wow.
How I learned about it.
Wow.
I didn't belong to a synagogue, never did. So maybe there, if I would have been in a Jewish community, maybe someone would mention it. I don't know. But the reason I learned is because my brother related it to me.
Wow. Wow.
So now for a few years I forgot. My brother is now for 3 years in a nursing home. Unfortunately, he got sick, and from the hospital he was moved to a nursing home. So it's 3 years since he's been there. Now he practically doesn't talk, practically doesn't open his eyes. He recognizes. When I visited him with my daughter a few months ago, he heard my voice and he said, "Ina, my nickname from Faina is Ina." That's how I was called at home. And he recognized my voice. I said, "Yeah, look at me." He opened for a few minutes his eyes and then closed again. That's all. So we stood for a while with my daughter. She took me to Brooklyn in Ship's Head Day. And then we left. That was a few months ago. June 22nd will be his 92nd birthday. But I want to go a little bit back, telling you about my family history. I knew only my grandmother on my mother's side. Never met my father's family, because when I was born, they were living in a different part of the country. And then when the war started, they were all killed, all exterminated, like all the other Jews. So my grandmother on my mother's side, who lived with us for all the years that till she passed away when I was 12. So since my birth, my grandmother was my real support system.
And what was her name?
Her name was Faina. In Russian it was called Genya. Her maiden name was Fried. She was born in 1878. She was married to my grandfather, Mendel Pochin. They were living in the Pale of Settlement. Catherine the Great, the Russian Tsarina, made a line where the Jews could live in Russia. It was called the Pale of Settlement. It was part of Ukraine, part of Belarus, and the Jews weren't allowed to go to live in the Russian big cities at all. So that's where my grandmother was living, and my mother was born, and she had 4 children. Everyone was born there. First they lived in a small village called Pukhovichi in Belarus. And then when my mother was, when she married my grandfather, they had 2 children. My mother was the eldest. And then her brother was born 2 years later.
And what were their names?
My mother's name is Sarah Dina. My granddaughter is named for her, Dina. Dina Sarah, she is named. Yeah. So my mother was Sarah Dina, and her brother Abram. Then the Russian-Japanese war happened, and everyone was drafted in the army. So to escape the draft, my grandfather, with 3 brothers of my grandmother, left Belarus somehow, and I don't know what way they used. Eventually they came to United States, to America.
Really?
Sometimes in 1905, they came to United States. When they were processed at Ellis Island probably, and I didn't know it for a long time. Their name, last name, Pochin, was changed to Bloom, a more American sounded name. So I don't know exactly where he lived. His brother was also with him somewhere. My grandmother's 3 brothers, they had their name Fried, her maiden name is Fried, last name, so don't know where. I never could find them either. So he started to work in the United States, made some money, enough to buy tickets. It was called ship tickets for the family to come to United States to join him. When he finally mailed the tickets, my grandmother's mother, my great-grandmother, got very sick. And she couldn't leave her because there was no one to help. The brothers went to the United States as well. So she couldn't leave. Then my grandfather decided to come back to Russia. After 2 years being in the United States. He came back. Probably he had some money because he started a business floating up on the river. They were living next to a river. The wood, cutting trees and floating down to the Black Sea for processing, for selling whatever it was. That's how he worked. And they had 2 more children. He built a house in the same part of Russia, which is called Belarus, a new house. The house is still there.
Really?
That he built.
Wow.
My mother's sister, the youngest sister, went to see it. My mother never did, but she saw the house. I will tell you what happened to this house. In any case, he got sick, pneumonia. There was no antibiotics at that time. He passed away. He passed away in 1908, right? No, in 1912, because they had 2 more children after he came, so boy Joseph in 1908, and then a girl in 1910. Do I talk too much?
You're good.
So he passed away in 1912. Left the family with 4 kids, small kids. My mother was the eldest, 10 years old when he passed away. So they started to live, opened a little bit in this house that he built, a little store. They had a cow. My mother would come early in the morning, like 4 or 5 o'clock, milk the cow. They would sell the milk, and also they made gefilte fish, salt, baked challah, and salt. That's how they lived. Then the First World War started in 1914, and this part was, attacks from German troops and others. It was a terrible time for them, but they survived. Then the Russian Revolution happened in 1917. For a couple years it was okay, but then the Bolsheviks, the communists, decided to expropriate all the belongings of the rich somehow, because they had this house. The house was taken away from them.
Oh, goodness.
So the children gradually moved out to different places, but they finally got congregated in St. Petersburg. My mother moved to St. Petersburg in 1920 or 21. My grandmother stayed there for a while. They left her a little closet.
Okay.
So the suitcase that my grandfather came from United States back to Belarus, she packed her belongings, candlesticks, and other things, and hired a horse-drawn carriage to take her to the train station. Came to the train station, took the train to St. Petersburg. It was still St. Petersburg. It was only named Leningrad after Lenin, the great leader of the Bolsheviks. He passed away in 1924, so the town was renamed in his name, Leningrad.
Mm.
When the Soviet Union disintegrated in 1991, the town got back its name, St. Petersburg. So now it's called St. Petersburg again. In any case, my grandmother reunited with her children. They rented one room in a big communal apartment, which before belonged to some nobles probably who could afford, because it was like 17 rooms in this apartment.
Wow.
So it was 17 families.
Mm-hmm.
But it was at least in the center of the city.
Mm-hmm.
My mother went to work in a plant to do some cleaning in the plant. So my mother was working as a cleaning person at the big plant, and an engineer saw her and he said, "What's a young girl doing here? Let me give you another job." And she was given a job to sort details for the machinery. That was better. In any case, time passed and somehow they all got jobs. And even my mother's brother, who was working at another plant, got a proposition to go to a tech school, but he gave the chance to his younger sister. So she is the only one who got some professional education, my mother's younger sister.
How did your parents meet?
My mother's first boyfriend, not a boyfriend, there was no such a thing in Jewish families as a boyfriend. Mm-hmm. You can call an acquaintance. He got killed in the Civil War, when after the revolution was a civil war. He got killed. So she was single, and when they moved to Leningrad finally, she was 30 years old when she met my father. Exactly how they met, I don't know exactly how somehow they met at some friends. My father at that time was a practicing dentist working at a clinic outside of Leningrad in the suburbs. So they met and finally married. When they went to register their marriage, my father had shoes, but my mother's brother didn't have shoes, so he didn't go for their wedding. in any case, they started to live. He was working, she was working, and she got pregnant with my brother. So the way to live all in this one room, in this big communal apartment, was not good. So they started in Russia. You could exchange your rooms, your apartments. A whole process. They took them and give some money unofficially. But that's how it worked. So eventually my mother and father moved with the child already, with my brother. They found another apartment, 2 rooms in another communal apartment. And then eventually my aunt and my uncle, everyone finally married, got their own apartments. So the grandmother moved with my mother because they had 2 rooms. That's how life was. Not easy at all.
No.
Not easy at all. And it was very difficult to buy some clothes, some groceries, everything was. But they worked. The 2 of them, then my mother had to stop to work. What my father started to do is he got a dentist chair in their room. And my mother would help to clean, to boil the instruments, and he would take some private, unofficial patients. So to get some money, extra money, because the pay that he got from this clinic was very small. So they somehow lived when my grandmother helped to raise the child, and then I was born. So the family grew and we were all living in this communal apartment. I was born in August 1939. For almost 2 years. It was a blissful time. My family consisted of my mother, my father, my grandmother, and my brother, who is 6 years older than me. We were living in a communal apartment in Leningrad. We had 2 rooms, which was the envy of the other tenants, because they had 1 room. One family had 1 room, and the other family had 1 room. We had 2 rooms. And we lived there for a while. But then, when I was born, in the end of August 1939, on September 9, 1939, the World War II started. It started by aggression by the Germans against Poland. At that time, the Soviet Union had an agreement with Germany. So the Soviet Union helped Germany to conquer Poland. Germany got half, the Soviet Union got the other half. And for a while it was best friends, Stalin and Hitler. The agreement was called Molotov-Ribbentrop. That was the agreement made for non-aggression. It didn't last too long, and after Germany conquered half of the world, including half of Europe. Even Stalin was warned that they might attack. He didn't believe. No, we're friends. Why would they attack? Stalin's purges for 30 years disseminated all the army breath. His terror that Stalin made in the country of the Soviet Union. He was the leader for almost 30 years, 29 something. The politics were to excriminate anyone who had a different opinion, whom he didn't like, not only he. It was a big apparatus. It was called NKVD, which later converted to KGB. No one was able to say a word, or if one person didn't like the other person, he would claim that he is anti-Soviet. The numbers of people who were actually killed in internment camps sent to far east, to Siberia, to far north, in the labor camps, who perished, who were killed, who were imprisoned. The actual number is somewhere between 30 and 40 million. The number of Soviet casualties in the World War II is like 26 million. So Stalin actually killed more people than Hitler did. It was a terrible time. At first, when I was born, I didn't understand, obviously. When I almost was 2, on June 22nd, 1941, the Germans attacked the Soviet Union from all sides, plus the fascist Italy were also attacking from the south, Germany from the west, Finnish also were the coalition with Germany from the north, and the idea was for a blitz campaign. They thought they will conquer the western part of Russia in a few days, which they did. The Baltic republics, half of Ukraine, most of the Belarus, some of the southern republics, and they will move to Leningrad and to Moscow. As I said, we lived in Leningrad when the war started. It was my brother's birthday, June 22nd. He was getting 8 years old. My mother went to the market to buy something for the birthday in the morning. When she came back, she said my father stayed white-faced. He said the Germans attacked, the war started. June 22nd, 1941. The war lasted 4 years. In any case, the Germans' plan was to move quickly. They thought it will be a blitz campaign to conquer everything, and they did conquer a lot of territory. And their plan was to kill all the Jews, get rid of all Jews everywhere in Europe, including in the Soviet Union. So the story that I learned later, all the relatives who stayed in Belarus. My father's family was in another part of Russia. Everyone got killed. I never knew any relatives because of that. When they came, they didn't come, they only surrounded Moscow, and they decided to surround Leningrad, not to occupy it, but let it all die from starvation. All the roads were blocked. All the food storages were burned. There was practically no electricity, no water, and when the war started at June 27, it was still warm, but then in Leningrad was getting colder fast. So people could not leave the city by themselves. They had to be engaged in some organization that would be for a work purpose. Like my mother's sister's husband, he was a building engineer. So he got an assignment to go to Siberia to build a plant to produce tanks for the army. The army didn't have any ammunition practically, no artillery, nothing. Everything was absolutely in disarray because the country wasn't ready. Germany was the best friend. All the top army command was totally killed, exterminated. My mother's husband was able to do is sign my mother as a worker. So the family could go with them to Siberia, but he was not able to sign my father in this group because he was a doctor. So in any case, we left. The city was totally, the siege of Leningrad started September 2nd, I believe. We left September 11. We were still able somehow to get on a train. We traveled for 2 weeks to Siberia, but the bombing never stopped. The city was bombed completely, cut off of any supplies. 1.4 million died there in the city, in Leningrad. The train that my brother remembers, the car in front of ours was bombed. So it wasn't ours, but that was bombed. So everyone went to clear the trucks from bodies, from this bombed parts of the train. Somehow then they found connected to another, I don't know, front, and we went. So it took us 2 weeks. My mother took some clothes, something, I don't know what else, a couple suitcases, and that's how we left, with not much. After 2 weeks we arrived to the place where he was supposed to build this tank plant. He was given a room in a house for his family. His family was him, his wife, my mother's sister, and their daughter. She's 3 years older than me. Yesterday was her birthday, 89th.
Oh,
I called her. She's still in Leningrad.
really?
Yes, she lives there.
Wow.
Obviously, the parents are not there anymore, but she still lives there. We were given the front, the cold, like, entrance room.
And that was you, your brother, your mom, and your grandmother as well?
What was fortunate that little house had a wood stove, which one part went to the room and one little part went for the outer room where we stayed. My mother found a job, in some warehouse to sort some of the details for whatever machinery. So in the morning, when she would get up, later on, like when I was already 4 probably, I remember her bumping the ice from the doorway with an axe to open the doorway. That I vividly remember that picture. My mother trying to open the door to go to the place of work. So we lived there for 4 years.
And where was your father at this time?
My father was left in Leningrad. He was working, as I told you, in a suburban clinic. I have his letters. That my mother kept them. And my brother gave me these letters.
Wow.
From my father. You see, the first one, September 29th, 1941. We left in the beginning of September, when the city was already sieged. And my brother told me how they would go to the roofs to throw out the bombs. So that's my father's letters that my mother kept, and then my brother made a copy for me.
Wow.
He is writing us, in Russian obviously, how they're doing. Then little postcards, yes.
Oh my gosh.
To Siberia, to the city where we were living. And then finally my mother, but the city didn't have anything. The rooms that were ours were in a communal apartment. And when we came back 4 years later, after the war finished in 1945, the war ended May the 8th, 1945, and we came back from Siberia May 1st, a few days before.
So were you reunited with your father when you came back?
My father passed away from starvation. My mother got a notification January 27, 1942. We left in September. The city was under siege. There was no water, no electricity, no food. Somehow people had something, they survived, they traded something. For a while he was okay writing this letter. It was, some supplies were still coming somehow. Then the city is located on the Neva River, which runs between the Baltic Sea and a lake called Ladoga Lake. When this lake froze on the frozen river was made a road with some supplies coming. It was called the Life Road. So some supplies, someone would get them, then trade, whatever. My father wasn't good, obviously, at trading. When we came back to Leningrad after the war ended almost, a neighbor in this communal apartment told us the story about him, how he passed away. She said one day, again, the bombing was constant. He went from this cleaning somehow by foot, probably. I don't know how exactly he came, but it was bombing. So he was hiding for hours under a bridge. It was very cold. The winter, that particular winter, was the coldest on record. Minus 40 degrees Celsius, which is almost the same in Fahrenheit. He stayed for so long. Then he finally came to this building where the apartment was. And this neighbor saw him coming. She was also coming. Our apartment was on the 4th floor. Walk up, no elevator. He said, when you will come back, take a pot, go down, pick up some snow, and you have books. He had these medical books, whatever. Put them in the stove and warm some water. He asked her, can she give him some water? No, I can't. She told my mother. My mother told the story. So he finally climbed to the apartment, lay down, passed away. That's all what happened. So obviously, since I was 2 years old, when we left, I don't remember him. And all I have now is his letters, loving letters, how I'm fine. He writes in every letter that I'm fine, don't worry about me.
And what was your dad's name?
Name? Mendel. But he was changed to Russian name, Gregory. My son is named
Gregory.
Gregory. Not Mendel, I'm sorry. Hessel. I'm sorry, Mendel was my grandfather.
No, you're good.
Hessel. So it was changed to Gregory. In Russia, every child was given a name, the first name, and then a surname, like Geselevna was my father's name. And when I have the document, my birth certificate. It's written mother's name, Saradina Mendeleevna, and my father's name, Hessel Yankelevich. Kogan, the last name. And then it's written mother, Jew, Еврейка, father, Jew, Еврей. In the birth certificate. That's how the Russian issued birth certificate.
Wow.
So the Germans had easy access to all the Jews registered as Jews to kill them.
And were your parents very religious as well?
My grandmother, who was living for all her life in this small shtetl, she was religious. Her grandparents were religious. My mother, of course, all she had as schooling was 3 years of school, that's all. Then when my grandfather passed away, she stopped going to school. She had 1 year in it's like a yeshiva, it was called cheder, 1 year. So she could write in Yiddish. The spoken language was only Yiddish. My grandmother hardly could speak Russian. At home, we all spoke Yiddish.
So was Yiddish your first language?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yiddish was spoken all the time. Do I remember much now? I remember certain words. I remember certain expressions. I remember some songs that my grandmother sang to me. But obviously, since we're living in Russia, obviously everything was in Russian. Moving from the war years, I remember when probably I was 4 years old, that my grandmother would bake a potato, give it to me, and I would lick this potato all day long with my tongue, like that, and warm my hands. Then in 1944, United States, on the program Lend-Lease, started to send to Russia tanks, artillery, bullets, planes, tanks, and some clothing and some food. How it was distributed exactly don't know. Obviously the higher-ups, communists, got everything for themselves. But something trickled down. What I remember, I got a pair of wool stockings. And my brother got a sweater. My stockings were brown, his sweater was blue. We wore it for all the time because the winters there were very cold in Siberia. But it was still while we were living in Siberia. But then, when my brother grew up, my grandmother, gave me his sweater. She was for a long time knitting something for my stockings. So I had them. But also came to our family a can of beef stew. I don't know how many cans. Was it the only one, or maybe we got 2? But when my mother opened this can, like round like that, the aroma, I never had beef before. I was almost 5 years old. The aroma is still in my memory, in my mind. It was so wonderful. I don't think I ever in my life had an experience with some food that would entice me that much.
Wow.
That was absolutely exclusive. So slowly we came back to Leningrad. On the way back it was wonderful because my mother befriended a woman who baked for us some like dishes with some cinnamon and some sugar on top. and gave us in a pillowcase. We moved for 1 week. We were on the train from Siberia to Leningrad back. And I remember we ate all, but some, bits in this pillowcase, and I was
Looking at it.
It was most wonderful. But when we came, the 2 rooms that we had before the war, they were taken by a family who claimed that their building where they had their apartment was bombed. So we were, my mother's sister, her husband again got a room, and we were living in a basement under this room. But when my mother came to the building where we had these 2 rooms, a superintendent told her that that is not true. Their building wasn't bombed. And my mother hired a lawyer, and after 6 months, they were moved out from the apartment, and we got
Back into it.
back in our rooms. Yes. That's when the neighbor who survived told my mother the story about my father. So again, she went to work. My grandmother was managing somehow to feed us. My brother went to school. There was no paper, but on old pieces of newspaper he would write. And when it was time for me to go to school, a new school was built. The city was, I don't know how many percent, 60% bombed, destroyed. Most, I mean. Not everything, but most. So a new school was built, and I remember how my mother and my brother brought me to the school, enrolled me. School in Russia starts on September 1st. And they gave a desk to sit with another girl, at the school only for girls. Till the 9th grade, I was in a girls' school. In any case, I went to the school and I got seated with another girl. And I was looking down at this girl's boots, shiny boots. I couldn't take my eyes off her boots, whatever the teacher was saying. I was born left-handed. My mother told me that my father, it was not allowed in Russia to be left-handed. So since I was a little girl and when my father was alive, he would put my left hand back and teach me how to take a spoon, whatever, with the right hand. When I came to school and we were given a piece of paper and a pencil, and I took it in the left hand, all of a sudden, with a ruler, wooden ruler, I got slapped by the teacher. You cannot have it in your left hand. Take the I still I can cut with a knife only by the left hand. But I learned to keep the spoon, the fork, with the right hand. At least that.
And do you write with your right hand too? You have to.
After I was slapped numerous times, yes, I learned to write. Now I cannot write with my left.
Really? Wow. Wow.
That is the Soviet system of education. So, in any case, I started to learn, I started to read. I read all the books in the local region library, all of them. There was none left. Many books were forbidden to be distributed in Russia, kept in the libraries. You know, later on, when I was in my 30s, they started to publish books of foreign authors. And you could get to buy a subscription for all the issues. You had to go stay online. The word stay online was the major expression. I would stay online in one line for potatoes, in another line for carrots, in another line for fish maybe, for onions, all different lines. The same was with the books. You had to stay in line and register. Then you have to come every few days to confirm that you are keeping the line. Finally, when that was the time to sell, all night long we had to stay in line, all night. By the morning they would start trickling people in the store, and you could buy. I bought, I don't know whether you know this writer, Fechtwanger, Jewish writer from Germany. I bought a subscription to a French writer in Russian, translated in Russian. Roman Roland. I brought a few, some. I brought many books. You know, when we left Russia, we were allowed, since we were 4 people living. My mother didn't want to go to United States. The invitation, I jumped. My mother's brother, when he was 14 years old, and they were living in this Jewish shtetl, he went to study in a yeshiva in Poland. Somehow, don't know how. And from this yeshiva in Poland, when the war started, somehow before the war, exactly don't know, they moved, the First World War, the yeshiva moved to Palestine. He came to Palestine in 1922. His daughter, my cousin, who just turned 93, was born in 1932 in Palestine and lived right there. But he would write letters. His name is Abraham. First to my grandmother while she was alive. For Passover, somehow he would send a package of matzahs. He wrote in Yiddish, and I remember my grandmother reading this letter, kissing it, keeping it at her heart. It's her son. She never saw him again in her life after he left at the age of 40. Her other son, Joseph, he was killed during the Second World War. He was in Leningrad, drafted in the Air Force. The airport was bombed there. He was killed. So she remained with 2 daughters, my mother, the eldest, and then the younger daughter, when she moved to Leningrad. But she never saw the son who left for Palestine. She died shortly after his daughter, my cousin, Hannah is her name. She got married. She was 19 years old. She was born in 32. So it was 53. No, 51. 51. She got married. And finally they sent after it was developed, the wedding pictures. When we got them, my grandmother passed away. She never saw it. The pictures. When we got this envelope with a couple pictures, to my mind, Hannah was the princess. That's how they depicted in a long dress. That is the first time I saw a real person, not an actor, in a long dress, sitting beautifully. That was her chuppah, wedding. Unfortunately, my grandmother didn't live to that. She was sick for only 13 days. She got esophageal cancer. And she could not eat already. So the doctor said, you have to give her some chicken stock. I went myself to the market. Once a month, a kosher butcher would come to this market with a live chicken. He gave me, I bought this live chicken, took this live chicken to the synagogue where the shoichet was, the person who killed it, and I stripped it from the feathers, brought it back home, cooked, because my mother was working from day to night in order for us to live something.
Right.
I almost never saw my mother when I was growing up. She would leave early in the morning
and come back late
when I was in bed. And I tried to give my grandmother this chicken stock. She couldn't take it. But 13 days only she was in the bedridden and passed away. That was my first funeral. And I would say my greatest love and wife. I was 11. Somehow grandmother was for me the most important person. Yes, I understood that I have a mother. Almost when I was growing up, there were summer camps. It wasn't easy to buy a place to send a child, but my mother's cousin, he was able to get, so a few times I went to a summer camp, and there was a parents' day. My mother couldn't come to see me. That was very painful. In any case, I studied well. My brother, 6 years older, he graduated school. He was a brilliant student, but because he was Jewish, he wasn't given a medal. In Russia, when the best person here is valedictorian and salutatorian. In Russia, it was a gold medal and a silver medal to the two best students in class. He was best. So the next step was go to enter college exams. In Russia, we had stringent exams. Actually, the learning, the teaching was on a good level. Math, science, everything was. The Soviets had a saying, what you have to do is study, study and study. And then you have to work, work and work. My mother was working hard enough, so she was able to sustain our living to a point where some would go after graduating to work. She wanted us to go to college, both of us. When my brother went to take the exams in college, he was given not a passing grade. But one college, which was supposed to be a lower tier college, took him in a group out of 28 people. 18 or 19 were Jews in this lower tier college. In Boston, when he came to this country, they had a reunion in Boston. Many moved to Boston of these Jewish students, classmates. He went there.
Wow.
Yeah. So I entered college. My cousin,
Were you in the lower college as well, or were you able to get into one
in
of the
Russia,
higher?
college is college,
Okay.
5 years.
Got
There is no bachelor or master's.
Okay.
When I came to this country, my degree was evaluated as master's.
Okay.
5 years, not 6. Like here for 4 and 2. In Russia it's 1 straight. But the education, the system of education was strict but on a good level. All I can say. When I came after college, on the 5th year I got married to my husband. One synagogue remained in Leningrad. The city was, before the war, had, I don't know how many thousands, somewhere I have it written, but I don't remember exactly how many thousand Jewish people were living in Leningrad. But the policies of Stalin's regime was exterminating the Jews more than Hitler did in Russia. So, despite the fact that Jews were living for 1,000 years on this territory, the anti-Semitism, well, before the word Jews, anti-Semitism was terrible. It was a state policy, the anti-Semitism. It was supported by, there were so many purges of Jews throughout. Fortunately, President Carter got an agreement with the Soviet government to exchange Jews for grain. United States will sell grain. The Soviet Union would let Jews come out, immigrate. So we were lucky because it was a window for a few years, which closed then and opened again in '87. So we came here to New York at first, and that's how we started our American life almost 46 years ago. It was July 24, 1979 when we arrived. And my daughter was named a finalist out of 650 in United States. When she got acceptance letters from Yale, from Harvard, from Columbia, somewhere else. The
Ivy League.
Leagues. Princeton too. I was proud when I did work. I made so many projects in New York City, hospitals, but the greatest project that I worked for 2 years almost, River State Park. It's on Hudson River between 135th and 145th. A sewage treatment plant was built there to treat the sewage from Manhattan. And it was built in Hudson River. The roof, 28 acres of this sewage treatment plant was given to the state to develop a park. A state park.
That was your project.
And that was my project. I mean, as far as heating, ventilating, air conditioning. The architectural firm was next to Carnegie Hall. There is a building at Leningrad. On 20-something floor, an architectural company that I worked with. And that was my baby, my project. I did all the design. I selected all the equipment. I worked with all the manufacturers. I did all the calculations. I wrote the specifications. Sometimes the secretary was typing and would show me some mistakes. Obviously, English is not his first language, but technically, advice from me.
Yeah.
Well, to keep up, trying to making the best as far as professional, but mostly in relationship. Well, the things that I experienced with the war. 4 years of war, 4 years of torture, losing my father, deprived of many things in life. I told you when we got this can of American beef stew, the best thing in life. So I hope that the authoritarian regime that I lived in for 40 years would never come. As far as anti-Semitism, I experienced it all. I told you we were living in a communal apartment. The family that lived there, their son, Victor, would get drunk. Once he ran after me with a knife. Go to Israel! I was up. His mind was certain. I ran away. I was running to the police station. He was running behind me because he was drunk. I came first to the police station. I said, my neighbor wants to kill me. But he didn't kill you. And he finally came in. Yeah, but he didn't kill you. That was that. The anti-Semitism that we experienced. When I was sent to a summer camp, I was beaten. I fortunately survived. The girls, when they learned that I am Jewish, girls, it was a room for girls. I don't know, 15 girls maybe. They put me in a corner and beat me up heavily when they knew that I am Jewish. I told you about difficulties to get in college. The anti-Semitism in Russia was rampant. It was on par with Nazism. And it was state-driven, not only people. So many purchases, so many Jewish writers, so many doctors. It was when Stalin was died. it was a plot of Jewish doctors. All the doctors were driven out of jobs. So anti-Semitism was around in solitude, in that. It was one synagogue in Leningrad for all. Still there. The synagogue was built by a Jewish blacksmith. Beautiful synagogue. In college, when we were there, we decided to go for Simchat Torah then. We went, we didn't go even inside. All of a sudden started arrests.